a best-selling authoress from Portsmouth area, and her brother Brendan, who is going to tell us one heck of a story. Good morning, Brendan.
Yeah, good morning.
And we'll say good morning to Bryony a little bit later on. So we're going to start off with Mr. Bowie. And there we had David Bowie, Starman from The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. I want to see the T-shirt for that, by the way. I haven't seen the T-shirt with all that on it.
I think she's got it.
Oh, what, the wife?
Yeah.
Oh, the one who sings this?
Yeah.
But not today?
No, not today.
Not today. Oh, okay. That album was the 5th of 26 that David Bowie released between 1967 and 2016. That particular song from 1972 got to the UK singles number 10. What I found out about it, I don't know this off the top of my head, so I believe this is Wikipedia, so must be true. It was written as a direct result of the head of RCA's request for a single, and it's about Ziggy Stardust bringing a message of hope to Earth's youth through radio, told from the view of one of the youths. So, Brendan, why that song?
It's just David Bowie's been a big part of, I think, of everyone's life, and he's so artistic in so many ways. And my wife loves the guy, and she wouldn't swap me for many people on the planet. But when he was here, I think she would have swapped me for him if she could.
I was wondering where you were going to go with that one.
And so she sings a song at parties, so it's something special for me and her.
We are building this up, aren't we, if we're not careful?
Yeah.
So what other Bowie songs do you like?
It's difficult, because I think it's this one, probably my wife would better answer better than myself, as she's the bigger fan. I have more respect for him as an artist and performer and what he's gone through and the barriers he's sort of broken down. But to try and pick multiple songs as his, it's difficult, because literally every one of his songs are like a single. Heroes I love as well. It's just you can go on for hours about him. You can probably pick albums instead of songs.
Have you ever seen him live?
Unfortunately not. I've just seen a couple of tribute bands, one that's very good called Absolute Bowie. But yeah, unfortunately I wasn't able to see the main man himself.
So Brendan Doherty, isn't it? Tell me about your background.
My background is probably music, sport, gym, growing up with parents that teach you great morals, as in you have to learn how to speak to adults, please and thank you.
Oh, that's an interesting one, how to speak to adults.
Yeah, so you had to always engage when they had adults around or family around. I mean, everyone can sit on their phones now, but even at that point, I wanted to go out on my bike or something. It's like, no, you're going to come here because your grandparents come in. They tried to engage me in conversation in a room with about 10 other adults. And at the time, it was really uncomfortable. But what it done is it just gave me a couple of skills in life to have vocabulary and speech, and to be in a situation and not feel uncomfortable with lots of people, and that, because people are losing that skill now. So my background is with my parents. That's probably one of the best things they've done for me, was to make me engage and come out my shell.
Well, fair play to your parents. I just wish that was around here more often.
Yeah,
especially with trying to engage with people in conversation.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
So what sports did you like?
I was into football, which everyone's sort of into. I was also into my American sports at the time.
So when you say football, any particular team?
Yeah, Arsenal.
Oh, okay. I can let you have that one. My dad liked Arsenal.
Yeah, but, that's right. It's not the worst team. But
not quite.
I didn't pick any team based on them winning and being the winners. I just picked a team. I just was looking through a magazine when I was really young, and I just liked this football kit that they had on. I was like, that's my team, and luckily it turned out to be a half decent team.
See, that's a better story than mine, because my first love was West Ham, because in 1964 they won the FA Cup, in 65 the Cup Winners' Cup, and in 66 of course they won the World Cup. And I jumped on the bandwagon then, but I then started going to Fratton Park and.
It's funny you say that they won the World Cup in 66, because I always say Arsenal won the World Cup in 98, because they had all the French players for Arsenal.
In which case, you're perfectly entitled to say that. To find out, that's a very different story. I watched that at some sort of tented area in France, watching a 10-inch TV with about 10,000 people. It was easier to listen to the French commentary on the radio, not knowing all you heard was a word like petit, and that was about the only word I understood.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
I could talk to you about that for the next hour, but we are not going to.
No.
So what did you do when you were growing up? What profession did you go into?
I had to start off in the builder trade, because at the time that's all it was. Every father made their son do that. So I was dragged along to building sites, a labourer, electrician, plasterer, whatever it was. I hated it. The only thing that done for me was it made me realise this is something I don't want to do, so I'm going to do everything possible to not go down the building trade. So I must have done it for about 2 years. being sort of 16, 17, 18 on a building site with loads of different people from around England in digs. It was like bullying. I was just like bottom of the barrel, so I had to really fight my corner with people because I was half pretending to be more of an adult than I was at the time, probably underage as well a little bit, since I was 16. So I was really fighting my corner in the building trade, but the good thing I got out of it was I do not want to be around these people and do this anymore. It was just constant mess, dirt, daily stars everywhere. No, it wasn't for me.
And you mentioned before we started the interview, you mentioned about drumming.
Yeah.
Was that in your formative years of music? Is that what your love was? For example, I was brought up with the drummer Cozy Powell was one of my favourite musicians as an example. So how did it come about for you?
I think I was 10 years old and I was watching a Guns N' Roses live in Tokyo video with my friends at the time. Again, we were all 10. I think it was around 91, 92. And the drummer at the time, Matt Sorum, done a drum solo and it was so amazing. So all of us in the room said, right, we'll start a band. You be the guitarist, you be the singer, you be this. I'll be a drummer, I'll be this. 2 weeks later, they'd all given up on the idea and thought they moved on to something else like Turtles or He-Man or something. And I was still there. I've got a drum kit now though, so I want to try and learn this. So,
you do realise
so I just carried it on and that's it.
Yeah, but you do realise that the drummers are viewed as the weird ones in the band. Every drummer is the weird one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think singers can be pretty weird as well. I mean, they're usually far out there in their own little world.
I trust you're not referring to your wife like that.
No. I wouldn't class her as a singer.
No, and I think we'll veer away from that one just for my safety's sake.
Yeah.
Anyway, the main reason we're here, and already it's fascinating listening to it and all sorts of different things, but you've had if it's fair to say, a pretty tough time with your health. And if I may mention it straight away, it all started with testicular cancer, which is obviously one of the only, I think it's 3 types of cancer that is purely for men.
Yeah.
But I think the most important message that I've been given about this as someone a few generations older than you is not age related, because I think that's one of the biggest myths about it. So obviously you fit the pattern because you were young when this came up. How did you realise there was a problem, and what did you start to do about it?
So I think it's, off the top of my head, I think I was around 31. So 42 now. So it's around 31 when it started. So I didn't really do anything about it. That's the problem. I didn't do anything. It was my wife that actually done something about it. It wasn't me. I just woke up one day with severe pain, real stomach pains. It felt like I'd been kicked between the legs. That's how painful it was. So she's like, right, we're taking you straight out of the hospital. And went up there and we were at the hospital about 4 or 5 hours. And loads of people looked over me and they just said, oh, you must have slept funny in your sleep.
Can I just ask you? Can I ask you? Was it purely to do with pain, or was there a physical change? Was there a swelling or anything like this, or was it purely physical pain?
Point. No, it was just physical pain.
Right.
Yeah, it's just physical pain. So the hospital checked me all over. Even the army doctor there checked me, and they were like, "Yeah, you just slept funny and twisted something in your sleep, and that's it. Just on you go." And then it still didn't feel right. The pain went down, and then a year later it happened again, but it was worse. And then this time, my wife said to me, "Right, we're going to the doctors first because the hospital will just fob you off because they're so busy or just whatever, they don't want to look at you." And she made me go to the doctors that day, and I went to the doctors that day, and obviously the doctor checked over a couple of things, and she was like, right, you need to go straight up to the hospital. I'm going to phone them now in front of you. And she phoned the hospital up and said, I've got someone coming up to you now, his name's so-and-so, I need you to do this, this, this. And they were telling her no. She says, well, I'm telling you, this is what you're doing. So she had to fight for my appointments, and I went up there, and then when we was up the hospital, we was sat in different waiting rooms, and obviously as we're in different waiting rooms, the posters in each waiting room are getting worse and worse, and the leaflets are getting worse and worse because I'm getting more and more down to the specifics as what's wrong with me. And we're looking around thinking this doesn't look good. And they done the scan on me. I think it was like an ultrasound or something. I don't know the exact words for it. And then the woman that done the ultrasound on me literally run out of the room with paperwork and run upstairs and run past my wife, and was like, that's a bit concerning. Next thing I was called into a room and they were like, right, you've got which looks like testicular cancer, you're booked in for surgery here, your follow-up appointments here, here's some leaflets and we're going to now take some blood from you. And I was just there in shock. I didn't know what to do, and the hardest thing about that moment was that I knew I had to go out into the waiting room and tell my wife, because we was going to LA the next day. And it cost us $5,000 for this holiday. I was going to have to tell her this is all off. That was because my initial thought was I'm going to have to break her heart with that, and then also tell her that this is what's wrong.
We'll pick up on that after we hear the next track from Pink Floyd. And that could only be Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, taken from Wish You Were Here. 1975, the ninth of 15 albums Pink Floyd released between 67 and 1994, then a 10-year wait until the Endless River in 2014, the last one, and probably it will be the last one. That particular song actually got to UK single number 68. Well, when you think of some of the number ones they've been around.
I know.
Roger Waters, who wrote that, said that the lyrics were probably about himself. David Gilmour, always said he thinks of Syd Barrett, or always thought of Syd Barrett. And then Roger Waters in reply said, open to interpretation. Well, that's what happens when you get bands don't get on, isn't it? But Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. Why that song?
That song's dedicated to probably the greatest person I've ever met in my life, which is my wife's dad, Joe. He passed away recently at the age of 53. Unfortunately, he was part of the whole blood haemophilia scandal. Yeah, and he developed lots of issues, and then in his sort of last days he couldn't walk and was paralysed, and then unfortunately passed away due to something that the government done. So that was one of his favourite songs and favourite band, so that's why I picked that one. Anyway, that's for Joe.
It's just so sad, and yeah, lovely selection and a lovely reason. You had to go out and tell Rebecca what the diagnosis was. How did that go?
Well, yeah, so they took me into a room, just told me and gave me all these leaflets and dates and everything, and I just had to get out.
Can I interrupt you there and ask you a silly question? How did you find the leaflets? Were they too wordy? Were they very informative? Were they useful? Were they a waste of time for you?
To be honest, most of the stuff they pushed under my nose to chuck me these leaflets, they were taking blood at the time, and my brain was still taking it all in, so I couldn't even probably tell you what these leaflets looked like, or even what colour they were. They were just chucked at me, and then I was then put into a room with a very young army doctor who must have been, I don't know, 20 years old, and then he had to try and handle myself. And
that's a good example of a question from somebody who's never been through it.
Yeah, and then he was trying to ask me questions ready for the surgery in about a week's time, and I was like, look, sorry mate, I need a minute here. And he's just like... So
you were told you had cancer and you had to have an operation within a week?
Yeah, the surgery was booked sort of in a week, and then a follow-up appointment a week after that.
You were still a youngster, a 30-year-old, having to face that.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I thought it'd never happen to me because I'd always lived so healthy. You know, I'd always trained 4 or 5 days a week, always ate the right food, never smoked, sort of barely drank, always looked after myself. So then when it comes at your peak, you know, when you hit 30, you feel like you're at your mental and physical peak, and then you then get taken to your lowest point physically and mentally. It's very hard. But going back to your question, sorry, I went out on reception and had to tell my wife. I just went out there. There was lots of people. There was about 50 people all sat in there. So I just looked at her and just sort of waved her towards me and just quickly ran out of the reception. She followed me out, and then I just managed to make it as far as the stairwell and told her what it was, and then broke down on the floor. That's it. Yeah, it was horrible.
Daft question number 59. What was Rebecca's reaction?
Just gave me a hug, and she was obviously in shock like I was. But when you hear something so horrific, sometimes you can't say nothing, and it's not really wise to say anything. Like she could have said something silly. Don't worry, it'll be okay. We're going to get through this. She just held me, and that's all over.
You were clearly in shock, and obviously that's the right word. But how long did it take for the shock to pass for you? Would you say?
If we were on about like a real shock state, it probably took 2 days full of me just sitting there staring into space thinking, well, life's over, what's the point now?
Was that the expression for it to sink in?
Yeah, literally, I would say a good full 2 days of just basically no sleep and thinking, what was the point of stuff, and then what am I now going to do, and what's going on, and what's the future? So that before I could even start thinking about anything else. Yeah, 2 days.
So you then had another 5 days before the operation itself, and then you had the operation. So what happened then?
So this gets even more stranger here, and I don't know how people might take this one. So the holiday was going to have to be cancelled. It was a $5,000 holiday we planned for about 2 years, and we booked loads of stuff for it. After speaking to my wife and my sister, I was like, you know, we're going to have to cancel all this. And it was kind of like, do we have to though? Can you not ask the hospital, or can we not see about you still going on holiday and change the surgery date? Because if you're going to have this and it's going to be horrific and you're going to die, or it's going to be the end of the world, you'll never get to go to America and do all these things and go to the Sunset Strip and go to the Viper Room and the whiskey. So we ended up contacting the hospital, and I went in there and spoke to him and said, look, this is my situation. I've got this surgery now in a week, but I want to go on holiday the following day. Is there any way we can move this surgery and put it off by 2 weeks until I come back? Because I don't want to miss out on this opportunity to ever have gone. I'm glad we did it because that was 6-7 years before I'd ever be able to go anywhere again. And the hospital were like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. They said they said it makes no difference to missing 1 week, so 1 or 2 weeks. So they changed the surgery date for me. So when we went to LA, we were there with a dark cloud over us the whole time. And the day we flew back, it was the following day the surgery was booked for. So I don't regret doing that at all because I had some of the best moments out there, even though they were tainted by coming back to this. But
that comes across as a classic example. There is no right or wrong answer. It's your answer, and that's the only one that
was right for us. For some people were in shock when I told them that. They're like, you're doing that even though you've got this, but I don't regret it. And looking back now, it was still the best decision. So, and
that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
because clearly it was the right decision for you two.
Yeah,
and that's all that matters. Yeah. Nothing else counts.
No.
So you then come back and had the surgery.
Yeah. So I had the surgery. It was day surgery. So I was in hospital for about 6 hours, and it was scary because they're going to take a piece of me and cut it out. And then obviously you go through all the tests, and then you walk through the surgery then on your own, and then I woke up from the surgery and everything seemed okay, and everything seemed a success, and that seemed the end of it from that point.
And then what happened after that?
So I was doing monthly tests, and then a year later I got a call from the hospital whilst I was at work, and they told me that my blood results levels have spiked. They look for a certain protein in your blood, which is the first sign that cancer's come back. For any form of cancer you have, the first sign would be in your blood. And they said my CT scan.
I didn't know that. Is that right?
So whatever type of cancer it is, the blood would be the first place that they'll be able to tell where it's come, whether it's back or if you've got it. And then they checked the CT scan. They said, yeah, your lymph nodes have all swollen around your stomach, and we can see swelling around your spine and the base of your stomach at the back. He said, so it's come back, so we need you to come in a week's time for an emergency appointment to discuss all this. And I said, okay, yeah, fine, put the phone down. And I was at work, and I was in charge at work running it, so it was very difficult for me to get out of work. And then I didn't know what to do, so I just went straight over to where my sister works, which was just over the road. Managed to get hold of her and just said, oh, it's come back. And then pretty much went through the same feelings as before, but I think it was worse because I was thinking this is just never going to go away. And then, they booked me in for real intense surgery this time.
Can I ask you a daft question, number 93? When you got told the news second time round, was the impact worse on you than the first time round?
Because I then understood the cancer world a bit more. I then knew what it entailed and what the next step was. And when they told me where it was and what was going to happen, I knew what they were going to have to do. Because of the type of surgery they were going to perform on me is one of the most intense surgeries you can perform on someone. They cut me from top to bottom, back to front. Had to take everything out of me to get to where they need to get to. And then just before my surgery, they said, oh, you might lose a kidney as well. We're not sure. It might be part of your kidney, so we might have to take that as well, which then will have a knock-on effect. And they said, we don't know, you might not be able to walk afterwards because it's on your spine. So I had all these things going into the surgery that I was so worried about when I woke up, and if I woke up, what was going on. And they had to take my whole insides out, my organs and stomach all out of me, and put it on a tray still connected to get to my spine, which is insane. I wish I never YouTubed my surgery. That's something no one should ever do.
If that's not a reminder for everyone, Dr. Google is not the right place to go.
No, it's not. No.
I bet you thought you were in a Hammer horror film or something.
Oh, it was. Luckily I was asleep.
Oh yeah, well that would have been a lot worse, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it had come back. Was it more aggressive when it came back?
I think any cancer that comes back has got to be more aggressive than the first lot. So they performed the surgery, and they said everything would be okay once we've done the surgery. And then once I recovered from the surgery, which was months down the line, they done some more tests, and they said, unfortunately, there's another type of cancer and everything, and then went through all the chemo, so in months of that. So it was really
when you say another type of cancer,
I think they call it teratoma cancer, which just sounds horrific. And then I just went through months of chemo.
And how long? So how long would that? About another year. So by that time you what? 32, 33?
By this point, I would have been more around 34.
Oh, okay.
More sort of around 34 years old. Yeah.
But I think I'm right in saying that it didn't end there. Is that right?
No, it's. I then had other issues down the line. I mean, chemo itself is just horrific. It's just there's nothing good about that. That's just you watch yourself die in front of a mirror over X amount of months. You sat in a ward of people on their last legs, and you don't see them the next day and say, "Where's so and so? Oh, they passed away." And there's things like that are really horrible and hard to see in a chemo ward. There's nothing nice in that ward. It's all people breaking down. But yeah, that wasn't the end of it. I then had an issue with...
Before you carry on, that's a very interesting comment you just made, because that's going to come across as really scary for people who listen to this. But I will take it. You do take the view that people need to understand rather than think they understand, and this is your experience. So there may be others who might have a different experience, but certainly your experience is this is what actually happens, and this is what you have to be mindful of.
Yeah, this is what you have to be. If you're watching children next year, like 5 years old, having chemo, and they're strong, maybe, and then you're thinking, "Oh, I can't. I've then got to be strong in front of them." And then you see a old guy that's having chemo forever, and he says, "I'll just give you some tips as to what you haven't done, because this will happen," and he then passes away. And then, or another guy that starts the same day as you, and the same situation I was in, the same type of chemo, and the same course. We started the same day. This French guy, and then he didn't finish his course of chemo because he couldn't handle it, and then he was really ill. And I managed to get through 4 10-hour sessions every week for what felt like months, which is really intense.
So you had the chemotherapy, which was, as you just said, was quite intense.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? Because the cancer itself, the cancer experience, if that's not the right phrase, got even more worse for you, didn't it?
I don't know if it had got much worse from that point. I had another issue with suspected as cancer on my right eye. They found a lump on my right eye, so they had to perform open eye surgery awake, which if anyone puts a needle or a pair of scissors towards your eye to cut the gel layer away, your instinct is to look away, but I had to look at a certain direction so they could get to the lump, and I had to stay like that for about 3 hours.
Well, I have a tiny idea of that, because I had to have laser surgery on my eye because I had a torn retina, and that was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember that 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's nothing like you went through.
No. So yeah, I mean, every day we still live with it, and we have reminders. I say we because I always just mention, when I say we, it's me and my wife.
I'm going to spend a couple of minutes. Rebecca is in the room because she drove you here, and she's a carer, and Rebecca is aware we're going to mention this. Carers, how would you summarise unpaid carers for people who need the help?
I mean, you get people on the planet that are on stupid wages, like footballers and people and things like that.
We were talking about Kylian Mbappe today. You get £500,000 a week or something.
Yeah, and you think what they make in an hour and then what you make in an hour, or as you say, as most carers don't get paid anything. So my wife got paid nothing. We were very financially crippled by all this, because no sick pay, no nothing, which was another issue.
That's another programme.
Yeah, that is another programme. Yeah. There's no. I can't put it into words. It's very hard to put into words. All I can say about her is I would never have got through it without her. She made me go into that ward when I broke down, when I was going in for my 100th chemo sessions. I can't go into there. I've got bruises all over me. I feel weak. I can't do it. She's like, you've got to do it. Carrying all my stuff, all my medication, all the doctors that were telling me things. She listened to it, wrote it down. When I had to take certain pills, when I had to have home injections. Drove me here, drove me there. Because if she didn't, I'd have to have an ambulance from the hospital, which would have been a minibus, picks up a lot of different people, and I had to go all the way to Southampton from Portsmouth at the time, so that wouldn't have been easy. Even things that just drove me everywhere. I didn't have to think. I didn't have to think about nothing except trying to stay alive. That was it. I think
my thoughts on carers, I've been involved with them for a long time. I've been a carer myself, off and on, since I was 15. Is angels on earth. When you think of what they do, and I mentioned this off air, so I'll mention it on air, is for someone like yourself, you're okay in inverted commas, because you're being looked at, you're being treated, you're being helped as best anybody can in the circumstances they are.
Yeah.
But who's helping the carer? The carer's got his 24/7, and they're never off duty. You mentioned about going over, when you did your holiday, and you had this black cloud coming back. When I was on my honeymoon, Val's parents were very ill. So the whole honeymoon, we were thinking, what's going on? And it doesn't go away from you.
No.
And I think that if we're ever able to look back on certain aspects of community and society, there should be a whole book on being a carer, because those who are not carers do not understand. I have so much pride of helping carers, and some of the carers I met are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. And as you say, there are others who get lots of money who don't deserve to be in the same room. If you probably at this point, shall we lighten the load slightly to listen to a silly thing? That was the Sex Pistols from the great rock and roll swing of 1979, the soundtrack of the film. They got to UK single number 6. I don't know if you actually remember this one, Brendan, at all. And it was their first studio album for the Sex Pistols, was 1977, was Nevermind the You Know What's. That was a B-side. So the B-side of that song was Who Killed Bambi? That would have gone down well at Christmas, wouldn't it? Paul Cook on drums, Steve Jones on guitar, and it was after Johnny Rotten had left. And Steve Jones did the bass in the studio because, as we all know, Sid Vicious couldn't play a note. So why that song? I'm
a big fan of the Sex Pistols. That song is always stuck in my head, and I say it's random. It's one that John Lydon doesn't sing. But I found that song so uplifting. I don't know, just something about it I think is great, and I've been fortunate enough to meet the band and talk to them about that song, and got them to sign a 7-inch single of Silly Thing as well, which was amazing, and got to see it perform live with the Professionals, which was a spin-off of the Sex Pistols, and they basically made that song theirs because it was just Paul Cook and Steve Jones. I just think it's amazing. Just love it.
Okay, that's excellent. Well, we're going to have a slight break from your story, as fabulous as it is. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. And we're going to digress to 2-in-1 to your sister. So if you want to pass over the headphone, this is all great professional radio, folks. And Bryony is just moving into position. Hello, Bryony. This is a few months since we last. Actually, it's it's well over half a year since we last spoke. And you are a best-selling authoress, 4 books, doing well, looks like, with a 5th on the way. Before we mention that one, as much as you can, you've got a little story about the operation that Brendan had, and a certain coincidence.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me back. Lovely to be here.
Always.
So, as my brother was saying, when he was first diagnosed with cancer at hospital, he was with his wife. But what he didn't know is that I was in the hospital the same day. So we both left that morning for work and then both ended up in the same place without each other knowing. And I was unfortunately booked for surgery for a few days later. And I was in a bit of a shock and in a bit of a state. And as I left the hospital, I spotted my brother outside with his wife. And I could tell something was wrong. And I started walking towards the car with them. And that's when my brother broke the news that he had cancer and he was booked for the surgery for the Thursday. And it's the exact same day that I'd been booked for surgery as well.
You can't make these things up.
No,
no.
no.
Well, you're an authoress and you can't make these things up. I'm sure you can turn it into a book.
Oh, I already have.
So, talking of which, number 5, what can you say?
Well, it's on sale now.
Is it?
So if you haven't already read it, go and grab yourself a copy. It's doing very well. So the book came out on Friday, which by a massive coincidence was also when I've left my main job to be a full-time writer and self-employed person with my sessions that I deliver. So it was strange. As I walked out the door, it went live. It was...
You've jumped without a parachute, haven't you?
Yeah. But the book's actually called The Girl from Pompey Escaping the Rat Race. And it's funny that you was touching on carers earlier, because this book is actually my tribute to carers.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that, did I?
No, you didn't.
I didn't know that.
So very interesting and a very happy coincidence. So this book actually follows Bryony from 2016 to 2022, and that includes Bryony's trauma of working during the COVID pandemic and what she experienced during that time. So the book is out now. It's doing very well, and if you haven't read yourself a copy, then make sure you go and grab one.
Oh, I think without doubt, I can recommend the books. Everyone's got a different taste, but I have to say they're very easy to read. They're very easily to read, and I think that with most books, what I look from anything I read, whether it's a newspaper article, a book, or whatever, is it makes me think.
Yes.
And I think your brother's conversation so far I think has certainly made me think about one or two things, and I hope it has done for other people. So very quickly, what else is in the pipeline for you?
So I have started doing more session delivery. So as you remember last time I was going into schools and I offered early intervention for drink and drug addiction. But I'm also a goals and motivational coach and a life coach. So what I've been doing is I've actually been delivering sessions now for mental health, for motivation, trauma, letting go, and also for writing books for first-time authors. I've actually got a couple of events coming up locally, and it does mean that I'll be doing these going forward on a monthly basis.
That'd be brilliant, and it'd be great to catch up with you on that as soon as it's appropriate and find out a lot more about that. And Bryony, I can only thank you for arranging for your brother to come in as well. He's been a terrific guest with a fantastic story, and the very best of luck to you with the new book. I look forward to reading it, and we're going to listen to some Buddy Holly. It's virtually impossible. So why that song?
I think when I started off sort of my musical journey in life, it was 50s music was the first thing I got into because my dad was into that, and I played in a 50s cover band as a drummer, and my dad obviously much older and a keyboard player.
50s covers band?
Yeah.
Doing what sort of stuff?
Like Buddy Holly,
okay.
Elvis and all stuff like that. So I started off with...
The Shadows?
With that, but yeah, the Shadows, yeah.
Okay.
Started off with all that, and Buddy Holly is just someone he's influenced a lot of people. I think he's third highest in the music tree, I think. And just his songwriting for his age, and when he passed away, what he'd done. He was doing his own stuff, writing his own songs. I just think he's without him, there was so much stuff that came after him wouldn't have existed. And I've got my standardary sort of Buddy Holly tattoo that I designed on my arm. Because why not? Yeah, I just think the guy is incredible, and to do what he done and the legacy he's left at passing at such a young age is incredible.
Before we come, this is the final segment of the show, and what you've done, I think, has been absolutely terrific. I've no doubt you've certainly helped at least somebody out there. I also understand that you're a star in one of your sister's books.
Yeah, it's in her previous book, the one that just come out, isn't it? There's a whole chapter in there about myself, and basically I think I helped write some of it, didn't I? What was the name of the book again? Healing Journey, that's it, yeah. She's released so many
I know.
that I get confused. I just call them numbers.
Yeah, but what I want to know is, has she paid you royalties?
I think she bought me some Chewits or something.
Some Chewits?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, you're doing well, you are. Oh, excellent. So you're the inspiration behind some of the things that your sister writes. I think that I know, quite rightly so.
I think I'm the inspiration behind everything in her life. Without me, there would be there wouldn't be Bryony.
Or we could take that in a certain direction, couldn't we? So let's pick up where we left off. You've also had a really tough time. So how was the last? So you've already said you're 42 now. So this is all in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're here today. You look as fit as a flea, and you're right. Something you said earlier. No one would know.
No one
could possibly know.
No one would pick me out.
You obviously work out in the gym. You're quite muscular, and as you look like someone who's been in the army and who is probably on his way out to the Middle East or whatever.
Yeah.
So over the last 5 or 6 years, how's your health been? How's it fluctuated, gone up and down?
It's been going in a straight line. So I get checks every sort of 3 to 6 months for the first 2 or 3 years of being cancer free, and now it's yearly. So they do yearly tests on me, chest X-ray, CT scan, blood, and everything seems to be going okay. I seem to be keeping it away. So it's been, I think the last time I had it would have been January 2017 was the last thing I had related to cancer at all.
So you would obviously recommend to people that they keep an eye on themselves. You know your body better than anybody. And even though it took Rebecca intervention to us being men, we need the push of the better half, don't we?
Yeah.
Keeping note of what's happening and natural changes that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So what would be your big message to listeners out there? That's an unfair question to drop on you, but is there something straight away you think to yourself, this is what you must not forget?
Say if it's in regards to health, so just try. I still stick by and still fight the case of if you live a healthy life, you will be healthier. I mean, I'm proof that it's not, which is really frustrating. But I still.
Can I turn that around the other way? How would you have got through it if you hadn't have been healthy?
I'd have been a lot worse off trying to tackle it, which I've been told many times at different stages that if I didn't keep trying to be healthy and training, you wouldn't have been as healthy to fight each stage of it.
So what you did unknowingly is you built up your resistance to the cancer before you needed to, but just by being healthy, clean.
And being strong, the stronger you are, but if you're mentally really strong,
that's what I wanted to come on to.
First thing that was,
How would you summarise your mental journey in the last 10 years?
It's been very, very difficult. It's sort of pushed myself and my wife to the limit of whether we're happy and we should be together, in the respect that it tries to tear you apart when one of you becomes very ill, because you get the carer and patient thing kicks in for too long, the love and anything physical just goes. It's very, very, it's just literally made. I mean, we knew it anyway, and it's just basically proven what we both thought, that we're stronger than anything together, and that's what it's done for us. It's literally made it so nothing phases us now. There's nothing that we can't handle at all. Literally, you can throw anything at us, and we'll get through it.
So, you were naturally mentally strong, yeah? You would say that,
definitely,
and that helped you through the last 10 years. And you
100%.
don't feel that was fractured in any way. Your mental stability. I'm not trying to get you to answer a question. I want you to, in a certain way. I am genuinely curious to see how strong you were able to carry on.
Yes, it worries me thinking other people that go through this that aren't as mentally strong, not just the physical side, but mentally strong as myself. So I was brought up a certain way that made me I'm very determined, very stubborn with certain things. And I've got my wife that's like, I say together, apart we're iron, together we're diamonds, so we're even stronger. But yeah, I think mentally, I mean, it has obviously affected myself and everyone around me and my wife and that, but I think overall I worry about people that aren't as mentally strong that go into it, because they won't be able to get through it. It's you have to be made of real tough stuff to be able to get through this and try and find humour in it. You have to try and find humour in it and laugh. I mean, it's the only good thing is, two good things that have come out this about having cancer is, one, I can now make jokes about it. No one can say anything. And I get discount parking at the hospital. So there is some pluses to things.
Well, do you know what? On an analogy to that, it's not telling people what they don't know. My wife's registered disabled, so I'm her carer. But I would end up needing hospital treatment myself if I said I'm her carer. Although we do get discount on some tickets in some theatres, and then she doesn't mind.
Yeah,
but it's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
not free, just discounted.
Absolutely, not free. Yeah. We're coming to the end of the programme. Brendan, it's been absolutely terrific, and Bryony, who will say goodbye herself in a couple of seconds. We will come back and revisit the story. I think I'm certain, because there are so many aspects of this that we can develop, and I really hope that people listening will take from it that here's an individual facing arguably the biggest challenge, and you've come out the other side. You're a survivor, and there's a four-letter word, which I think is what comes through this programme from yourself and from Bryony from her previous programme, is hope. There is an end to this. You have to be lucky, but sometimes you have to make your own luck.
Yeah.
So we're going to play out to Little Richard, Good Golly Miss Molly, which was released in 1958. Why that particular song?
Again, someone I've admired. I used to follow the music tree up to the top, and you start to hit Led Zeppelin, Stones, and you get to the Beatles, then you get to Buddy Holly, Elvis, and I was like, who's before Elvis? Little Richard. That's the guy at the top. He's the king.
Really? Not Jerry Lee Lewis?
Jerry Lee Lewis, no, it's after. It's Little Richard is your man at the top.
Oh, so this is a conversation I'll lose.
Yes, it is, yeah.
So we're going to play out. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you here. So with a big thank you to Brendan, if you say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everyone that's listening, and I just hope someone takes some sort of positive out of this situation. It's that simple. That's absolutely wonderful. And then Bryony, it's been lovely to see you again in here, and a fifth bestseller on the horizon.
I definitely think so.
Well, we will find out. But thank you very much to both of you. That's been terrific. And also to Rebecca, who's been watching in the sidelines, and for everything you do, thank you as well. So we're just going to play out to, oh yeah, Good Golly Miss Molly.